Hello. I am going to be talking about bottom trawling. Bottom trawling is a way of fishing where you use a very large trawler and throw a huge net out the back, and then you just drag it along the seafloor, whereupon it picks up all sorts of inedible stuff. It destroys the sea floor, it catches a lot of fish that you don't need or that you're not allowed to fish or that sort of thing. What the hell? You just fill this net with that and you leave a devastation behind you. And that's something that a lot of commercial European Union ships do, particularly Spain. Because they do eat a lot of fish in Spain. So I'm not blaming the Spanish, but I don't see why it should be done over here in the North Sea. Anyway, that's beside the point somewhat. I'm going to be talking about this fish deal. Remember, I made a video, well, the last video I made, and I had just read the whole EU thing and I was feeling very emotional. I don't think I went into the trawling thing as well as I should have done. So I was looking it up again now, and I saw this picture, and for some reason, now this is completely coincidental, and I really don't know what's going on in my own mind here, but for some reason, the term bottom trawling and this picture here sort of seemed somehow to be in the same area. And perhaps you can tell me why I'm thinking such thoughts. Now, of course, I have no idea what's going on here. This particular little bit, I'll get onto this a bit more later on, but it says here, Romanian model in court over Starmer firebomb attacks. And I like the way the Telegraph has had the good sense and the wit to put the word model in sneer quotes. This guy apparently was in cahoots somehow with Roman Lavrinovich, who was originally arrested for setting fire to some of our dear leader's properties. Okay, well, I hope that's interested you. I shall proceed after I've told you that I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video, bell or button or whatever. Please share it and subscribe. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, just remember sometimes YouTube drops subscriptions. So just check that out. Okay, let's get on with it, should we? Now, you may think that's a fishy business, but I've got an even bigger fishy business for you. The local fishermen, all fishermen's organisations, are saying that Starmer's EU fish deal is treason. And yes, it is. Now, I read somewhere that Starmer's team, when asked about the fish deal, said something like, well, fishermen only contribute a little bit to the GDP. And basically they said, so they're not important. They didn't put it in those words, but that was it. The other deal, whatever it was, is a lot more important. And that's the attitude the government has. You see, the fishermen may not contribute too much to the GDP, but they are British workers plying a trade that's been going on for over 1,000 years here in this country. Now, the fact that it's been going on for over 1,000 years is not really that important, apart from the tradition, the handing the skills down, which can be useful sometimes. The fact is that it still is part of our British culture, the sea. It has been. There's a story about one of the battles when Britain was having a go at Turkey, I suppose during the First World War, and somebody said to the Turkish general, well, we've beaten them back. We've forced them towards the sea. And the general said, that was a terrible mistake because the sea is their element. That's how it is, and there's so much of the sea in our general language, three sheets to the wind or, tacking, all sorts of things. I'm not going to go into that. But it is part of the culture. There are British workers involved in this trade. It may not be a huge GDP, but it is a precious British resource, whatever. And when the fish are gone from the North Sea, it won't be anymore. And small local fishing companies, they can't compete with the sort of super tankers that the EU, especially Spain, will be fielding. Now, I'm going to show you here a picture of a Russian trawler. It's huge. Can you see how big it is? There's this big trawler here. And then it's got a little boat in tow as well. It's enormous. And the EU aren't buying those anymore, because they're Russian. But they have several of that type of ship anyway. And this is what those ships do. It's impossible for most ordinary citizens to understand how big these nets are, how much fish they get into those nets. Just look, that's a comparatively small trawler. Look at the size of that net there. And that's a bottom trawling net, which means it scoops up all sorts of fish you don't eat, as well as fish you do. And the EU rules in Britain were that we had a certain limit, so fishermen would be trawling up fish, not in nets as big as this, and they'd have to throw them back into the sea because they went over the limit. Dead fish back in the sea that we couldn't eat here. The whole thing was tragic beyond imagining. This is a fairly small ship, isn't it? Just look at all of this. Imagine what would happen, what the sort of catch you'd get on that Russian monster. So this is what the Labour Party is all about. I've said it before, of course, I'm not the only one either, of people who are saying that Starmer hates Britain, that he has no care for the people of Britain. And just because they're not that much a huge GDP, then they're unimportant. They are little people who are unimportant to the very man put in place to protect their interests. Paul Lyons, chairman of Lowestoft Fish Market Alliance, described the agreement as treason. This is an absolute travesty, really, he said. I say it's treason. 12 years extra on a deal that hadn't been concluded, that weren't renegotiated. That was us just thrown under the bus again. He just gave it. There was a bit of a disagreement on Sunday, and then Monday Starmer said, all right, here you are. Here is the lives and livelihoods and culture of a group of very unimportant people. Mr. Heinemann, who first began fishing age 9, spends up to 15 hours a day alone, toiling on his 7-metre vessel, Gloria Rose, out of Portland, Dorset. You see, this is one of the little fishermen who will be put out of business. It's not that unexpected, he says. Unfortunately, the fishermen are pawns in anything to do with the EU. The EU make a lot of money, he says, off catching fish. And then he said the deal was akin to robbery. It's not a deal. It's not a deal. It's a gift, a supplication, a sacrifice that we, the British people, are making to the EU, the great God of the EU. This highlights the total indifference of the British political establishment to the interests of our fishing sector, with Sir Keir becoming the third Prime Minister after Edward Heath and Boris Johnson to betray the industry. Yeah, I've been criticising Johnson and his Brexit shenanigans as well. But Keir Starmer is the man who is delivering what looks like the final blow. And against the will of the people who voted for him. It's not just economics, and that's another thing. The Labour Party are attacking farmers and attacking fishermen. Do you see a pattern there? It's not about just economics, it's about food production. This deal, I wish they'd stop calling it a deal, is not going to make it any easier. It does appear fishermen have been sacrificed on the altar of European access. Right, well, that's the more about the fishing, because as I told you this morning, I almost couldn't make that video. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to research it. Every web page I opened with statistics and that sort of thing was another punch to my face. Anyway, I sort of, you get used to these sorts of things after a while, so now that's why I'm going back to it. But while we're talking about bottom trawling, I thought we might mention this. This fellow here is a Romanian, and quite a pretty boy, isn't he? Just look at those little cherry lips. Okay, and he's a student apparently, and he conspired with, what's his name, Stanislav Karpiuch, who was, born in Ukraine. So what happened to the, what happened to the Romanian? Well, what's Romanian about it? Anyway, he was born in Ukraine and is accused of conspiring with Roman Lavrinovich, a Ukrainian who's already been charged with 3 counts of arson with intent to endanger life. Is that the same? Yeah, it is. It is. He's looking a bit more everyday there. And this is obviously some sort of a publicity photo. Now, you know how I mentioned Caravaggio in the last one? And I'm just looking at this, you see. And you look at this fellow here, and you see how he's either unbuttoning or buttoning his shirt. And, you know, there's a little sort of streak of hair down, a bit tousled. Yeah? And the look. I'm not saying anything about him. I don't know why he's having a studio portrait photographed like that. I can't even imagine. But I was put in mind of a Caravaggio painting called Cupid Victorious. Do you want to see it? Now, this may cause me some trouble with YouTube. I am going to blur out a particular part of the picture, but still, it might get me restricted for a while they check it out, because, you know, anything that has a picture of undressed people, there's a problem. But I've just got to show it to you. Here it comes. This is called Cupid Victorious by Caravaggio, and art critics have commented on the display that's being given there, where Caravaggio had an interesting life, and frequently much has been made of that feather there caressing the young man's thigh. Okay, so that's Caravaggio, and that's Mr. Carpiuch. What more could I say? So, as I said, I was talking about bottom trawling after all, and I don't know why, but for some reason I can't get it out of my mind that there's something connecting this to this. Perhaps you can elucidate, because I don't know, it's just somehow stuck in my mind. Right, well, that's it. That's our Caravaggio for the day. And I'll leave you to think about it. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.